Welcome to No Place Like Home with Mike and Megan Norp, where we believe the center of the universe is your home, and our home, and every other home on the planet. On this podcast, we talk about anything that has to do with that. Parenting, homeschooling, relationships, home decorating, really anything, as long as it has to do with being home.
Today we'll be talking about going into the new year with your family. Welcome, everyone, to the podcast.
Welcome.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah, totally.
And it's been a couple weeks because we took a break for Christmas.
Yeah.
Which actually is probably good because I couldn't speak for a little while there.
Don't. I told him that I was done listening to him speak.
I wasn't allowed to talk.
Now Mike got sick.
I got a little cold and lost my voice for the most part. So we couldn't have done it anyways. Or you could have done it by yourself, which is maybe actually would be better. Don't you think?
I definitely think so.
Then I wouldn't be getting in your way.
I'm just kidding. Mike never gets sick though. And there's like a trope about
rarely.
Very rarely in our marriage. And there's a trope about husbands that when they do get sick, like that they like feel really sorry for themselves and like moan and like mope. But Mike's the opposite. When he gets sick, he like completely denies that he's sick. And like, I'm fine. And then like every day, like tries to pretend like he's not sick until he can't any longer, and then like crashes.
I give in.
And like, I think I'm going to go running tomorrow. I'm like, what are you talking
I'm
about?
always certain that I'm on the cusp of getting better. Even my voice still, I think, is a little bit on the rough side.
Yeah.
So anyways, that we took a break and we were going to have to take one anyway. So it worked out really well.
Yeah.
We had a really great Christmas and, we're glad to be back. But we are appreciative to all of our listeners out there, all of you who are listening and being a part of this with us. And we always appreciate your thoughts and especially your reviews.
Yes, that's very helpful, I guess, in the world of podcasts that it helps the podcast grow, but it also helps us because, as I've said many times before, it's scary to have a podcast and to record your thoughts, like, and then they're like set.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I don't
it's
record
really
any
helpful.
of my thoughts.
I mean,
for the most part.
It's helpful. So thank you so much. So we wanted to share a couple of those and thank you for leaving them and encourage you if you feel so inclined to leave a review for the podcast. This is from Lori Johnson 86, and she said, I love this podcast. We just started homeschooling this year. This has been a great help. I grew up in Kingwood, so the Christmas episode was special. Megan grew up with my older siblings, the Glazebrooks. I'm excited to listen to more episodes. Thank you, Lori, and thank you for mentioning specifically who you were, because it really made my day.
That's
so
nice.
Thanks.
That's great. Okay, here's another one. My kids are grown now, but I enjoy listening to Megan and Mike share their experiences with raising a family. I well remember the desire to create the perfect, in quotes, Christmas. I will share this episode with my daughters who are in the thick of trying to do all the things and make Christmas magical, also in quotes. Presents, not presents, is the point. So that was from our previous episode. And that's nice. I actually appreciate that because it's nice to know that we have a spectrum of listeners who are, like she said,
different phases of life.
Yeah, different phases of life, but we're glad to be able to share it with you. So thank you very much. And that was Miller CS. So thank you.
And I hope it helped. I know that it helped me a lot too. It's funny, we recorded the podcast and I said that, and then I was out for a walk and one of my podcasts that I was listening to ended, and that podcast started, and it was a few days before Christmas, and I listened to it, and that advice from myself helped me because I was starting to feel that overwhelm, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is good advice that I gave myself. So
Wow.
We all need the reminder constantly, and so I'm glad that it helped you as well, or
And that's-
maybe your daughters.
That's why it's probably also good to write in a journal, right?
I know. You know what? I have been feeling a lot of guilt about not writing a journal lately. So thanks for adding to that.
Oopsie daisy.
No, that's interesting that you
can be a
mentioned
New
it.
Year's resolution, Megan.
That's
to write in
true.
your journal.
That's true.
And why don't you write in yours for me too? Tell them what I'm
Okay.
thinking too, because that would be. Then I don't have to do it.
But you want me to write it like I'm you, right?
Yeah, I'll just hand you the book.
Yeah.
You do it. You have better handwriting than me anyway, so
Well, that's true.
it probably wouldn't. No one would be able to read it if I did it.
I don't know if you're going to make it through this.
My voice is already starting to
Yeah,
do
you're
a little
starting to
bit.
fade. That's okay. I got you. I got you covered. Finally got you out of the way. Say what I
Okay,
really
so
want to say.
I will. I'll let Megan do most of the talking,
You
unlike
just
usual.
talk softly.
When I usually talk.
Yeah,
most.
you're right. I can finally get in a word edgewise.
Okay, so why don't we get into our
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 for
topic,
today.
Megan?
Yeah. Actually, Mike started when he records the part that says what today's episode's about. And the first time he said about New Year's resolutions, and I'm like, no.
Megan, the producer, director, whatever, came in.
Well, I just know that like I cringed when he said the word New Year's resolutions. Like,
That's actually 2 words, by the way.
it's 3.
It's 3 words. It's actually
But
3
thank
words.
you. Thank you for
Well, you
setting
said
the
the
record
word
straight.
New Year's resolution.
Okay, well, when you said those words,
We should make it 1 word. New Year's resolution.
Well, when you said that, because I think all of us are like, we all know, maybe not all of us, but some of us, maybe I'm in this category, know that we haven't been eating the best through the holidays. And we know, like, okay, probably should stop eating so much sugar or cheese, or, the new year might be a great time to pull back a little bit, get a little bit more in control. Or we're thinking things like, yes, I should be writing a journal. And so it's all these things that we should be doing. And so I actually totally believe in goals and, having intentions and moving forward with intentions, but about things and with vision. But I think that that word is beyond repair, or those words, sorry,
Right.
are beyond repair. It's resolutions that I keep thinking about as the word. I think maybe, I don't know. And maybe it's, we can just see it differently, but I just feel like there's so many, they're just like the tropes of like weight loss and fitness and, all of those things that make us all feel like, about the new year.
We kind of dread it, you mean?
Yeah, a little bit. But I also think that the new year is brilliant. I think Andrew told us once about, there's research about how when you walk through a door jam,
I don't ever do that.
when you walk through a door from one room to the next,
Oh,
and you
I
like
see.
forget, like, wait, what am I doing in here? There's a reason you do that. It's scientifically when you
You
walk.
mean when you do that thing where you walk in a room, you're like, wait, why am I here? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
why I walk in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, it's because you have like a short-term memory that's running all the time, like your computer, right? And it's running all the time, and it's keeping all this information in your short-term memory. And it will either move it to your long-term memory, so you keep remembering it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you walk through a doorway or into a new space, it actually will dump a lot of the short-term memory stuff that it doesn't see as necessary. Because it's like, I can't do all of this, and so it'll just dump that information. And that's actually good for you, because otherwise you would go insane. There would just be so many things in your head all of the time.
Like you need that to
You
happen.
kind of need that to happen, but that's also why when you walk into the kitchen, you're like, what am I doing? And then all of a sudden you're just, the fridge is open. And you're like, wait, why am I looking in the fridge? Or when you get on your phone and all
Like
of a
the
sudden,
ice cream is going in your mouth.
yeah,
You're like,
you're
what
like,
am I
wait,
doing?
what am I doing? No, but it's the same with social media. You'll be like, oh, I need to call so-and-so. And a moment later, you're like scrolling Facebook. You're like, whoa, what happened? I wasn't meaning to be on Facebook. But I think that it's great for your brain to have, and for your life to have, these signals of like, I'm in a new space now.
Okay.
So the new year is awesome. Like, it's like nice to be able to put things to rest and say that was 2021
Right.
and now it's 2022. Just an opportunity to do things differently.
Sure. So it's good for us to have a beginning and an end.
Can you imagine if all of life was one
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
It was always the same date. It would be awful. It would be. It would be like a prison. And so I love that we have weeks and months and seasons and years to say, okay, that was then, but this is now.
Right.
And it can be different. It's like when I went to college, and it was like, here we go. Like all the, when you live in the same place and you grow up with all the same people, you develop like a persona. And there's a definite perception about who you are and how you will respond to things, and, and the role that you play. And so when I went to college, I was so excited that I was going, and I wasn't having a roommate that I knew.
Yeah.
And that everything was going to be new, because it's like I can let go of all the things that I actually didn't really feel were me.
Uh-huh.
And I can be more of what I want to be. And when I introduce myself, and you
I totally went
know
for that.
about that.
Well, I had a roommate that I knew. However, I decided when going to college, I was going to change my name. I don't know why I decided to do that, but
Also, why you landed on the name that you
Well,
landed on.
listen. At the time, this in high school, I was a John Wayne fan. Okay,
That's so weird.
I don't know why.
Did you watch a lot of John Wayne movies?
A ton of them.
Really?
I don't remember actually. Couldn't tell you. I had a John Wayne like cutout, life size.
But those were the days. That was the heyday of cardboard
Dude,
cutouts, wasn't it?
everybody had one. You had to have one.
Yeah. And you landed on the John Wayne one.
Yeah.
And of
and
all
so,
the ones you could choose. What I want to actually know about the moment you bought that.
I'm trying to remember.
Because you didn't like order it on the internet. There was no such thing.
No, I don't even remember how I got that.
I'm going to guess
I
that you
wonder
were
if
in
I
the
got
mall.
it for my birthday or something.
Oh.
It's possible it was given to me.
Okay, wait. I've never
Anyways,
asked you these
let's not-
questions.
let's-
No, I really want to know. Were you renting and watching a bunch of John Wayne movies?
I think I watched some, yes.
How many?
I don't
What are we talking?
I couldn't
there
even
are
tell
like
you.
hundreds of
I
John
know
Wayne
there's
movies.
a million John Wayne movies. I couldn't even tell you.
And what did you like about John Wayne? Why did you
his
identify
like
with him?
swagger, He was like confident and a man, like
Everything that you aren't.
yeah, essentially at the time, especially. Yes.
Sorry, you just
This
left
is-
that wide open.
So, which is why I decided to channel John Wayne into my personal life.
And thought,
I decided at the time when I went to college, I thought I'm going to tell everyone that my name is Duke.
now you might be confused
Because-
because you're like, wait, John?
Well, John Wayne was the Duke. Okay, that was his nickname. I don't know where he got it or how that happened, but he was the Duke, and I thought, well, I'm going to be Duke from now on. And I
Duke
told,
is different.
and what's that?
Duke is different than Michael or Mike.
Well, it is different.
And no, I'm saying like you decided like what was Duke gonna be that Mike wasn't.
I guess so. I was a teenage boy. I didn't give it that much thought. I just thought, that's cool. I probably should have given it more thought, but I didn't. And I told my roommate who came, a friend of mine who came, and I said, look, I need you to call me Duke moving forward here, okay? When we're here at school. It's so funny that it did. I don't know why. Anyways, so I started to introduce myself at college as Duke. That's what I told everybody.
Yeah, that's
Told
where
you.
I met you that way.
And that was a major sticking point for Megan at first. She's like, I like this guy, but his name is Duke. How do I get over that?
Well, partially
Right?
because that was my dog's name.
Oh, boy.
And like also like it just didn't fit with you at all, like your vibe at all. Like
No, I didn't-
Duke, huh?
I didn't.
Really, there's nothing wrong with
Well,
being
you would have
Duke.
thought I would have dressed more like John Wayne with that sort of name, but I was just a guy with shorts and a t-shirt. Like there was nothing
Yeah.
Dukish about me.
Yeah,
in any
no.
way.
And so it was like, oh, I mean, I didn't really think about it much because that was your name. I didn't, but I think like 4 or 5 days in,
Yeah, it didn't take too long for.
I was sitting at your apartment and your roommate said like, hey, Mike. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And I think you were like, oh, please keep calling me Duke. My name is Michael, but please keep calling me Duke. And I'm like, what? No, I'm not going to call you Duke anymore if your name is Mike. And it's funny. And like I had this thought at this point, and I've told you about this, but at that moment in my mind is when we get married, I will call him Michael. And like, I was like, what are you talking about? When you get married, you've known this guy just for a few days, but I guess deep down,
Hey.
I knew
Your brain
that I
knew.
did not want to call you Duke
Your
when
brain
we were
was
married.
so smart
Yeah,
then.
somehow. So I think that was the end of it. I no longer called you
No.
Duke, and I immediately told all of my roommates.
I know.
like,
Eventually, word got out, and I don't recall it being.
you were,
much
I
of a
think you
thing.
actually let it go then. You're like, all right.
I was disgraced at that point. All the people in our dorms were like, "Oh," and that was it.
I think some people called you Duke that whole summer, though.
They might have. Maybe they didn't get the memo. Because a similar thing happened to me. I was walking with another girl on campus. This was before we were like together, I think. Why was I walking?
Who is this?
I was walking with
Who
some
is
girl.
This bimbo.
I don't know.
This
I was walking
floozy.
with her and I saw someone from home, as you do, on campus. And they're like, "Hey, Mike." And I talked to this kid for a little while, and then she's like, "Mike?" And I could tell, like, this is actually kind of bothers people when they figure out that your name isn't the name that you're telling them. So maybe
It was like one of those 80s movies
Maybe
where she's like,
people-
all of this has been a lie.
I know. Yeah, I guess people prefer honesty, unless it's a
Strange.
bona fide like nickname that is basically is your name,
Yeah,
which does happen to people. Anyways, we're getting off
it's great.
topic here.
Wait, I want to talk about this girl. Was this your dance partner?
I don't remember.
Mike took a dance class the summer we met and started dating, and I just really I didn't like this girl he danced with.
We had to practice.
Yeah, she had to come over and dance with him.
Yeah.
And I like watched from afar because you guys were dancing outside, I think, under a tree
Yeah.
or something.
Right. It was kind of a dirty dancing situation. I was teaching her more than anything. So
To take her under your wing.
yeah,
Help
she didn't know much.
Anyways,
Okay, so we were talking about college because you're saying you can kind of
new
change,
beginning.
right?
So here in 2022, if you would like to change your
It's
name
like we're going to college.
to follow a celebrity icon in your life, here you
Now's
go.
the
Here's your
time.
chance.
Do it.
Though there is a warning that it might backfire on you.
It didn't really backfire, but
it
the truth
really-
might get out.
Yeah. No, I love that, and I thought every year I choose a theme for the year or a word instead of like a list of resolutions. I won't say that there aren't things on my mind that I'd like to do better at.
Yeah.
And recognize this is a great opportunity, but no big deal if it doesn't stick right away. So you don't feel shame, in March when you realize like, oh, I didn't do any of my New Year's resolutions. Our brain, I read a book once that talked about how much our brain loves to like trick itself into thinking like everything's going to be different now.
Oh, when you do this.
And you get like a release of like good feeling chemicals.
Well, this is why people hop back in like different diet options or
it
plans.
actually was a diet book. It was called Intuitive Eating. But they talked about how we get a lot of good chemicals when we say like everything from here on out, I'm a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
And
We love it when there's an exciting new
yeah,
plan.
like, and I'm going to eat this way, and I'm never going to be tempted by. I'm so disgusted that I would ever be tempted by those foods. Like, oh, I can't believe I would ever eat them. And you convince yourself like you are a totally different person from here on out, and how that's awful. I mean, come on. And so I try to be a little bit more gentle with myself. Like and because you do improve and you can get better at things, but it's not like overnight. And don't believe any charlatan who tells you that they just woke up one day and they were a totally different person, unless they woke up after getting hit in the head with something.
You're right.
Because
And
then
they
maybe they
truly
were
did
totally
become a
different
different person.
So now I'm aware of some things I'd like to improve on, but that's all the time. And things I'd like to, maybe listen to a book on or a podcast or just look more into so that I can figure out how to be a little bit better at those things. But when it comes to the year, I do choose a word that I'd like to focus on for the year or, a statement. I actually haven't chosen mine for this year because I usually feel like it kind of just comes to me.
Yeah.
It just appears.
It like distills.
Yeah. No,
like the
it has.
dews.
Like funny in 2020, in December of 2019, I was like, vision. I'm like, oh, you can't do vision. Everybody's going to do that for 2020. Like a new vision. So I'll kind of play around with some words until one just feels right. And I haven't found one yet. And I'm trying not to like be stressed about that. Like
Trying not to be. is
Well,
the word.
I'm a little
Megan
bit-
is like, she has there's this ticking clock by the 31st.
No, that's what I've told myself. If I don't find something that sticks, it doesn't have to happen by, the end of this week.
By the time this is published, maybe you figured it out.
Yeah, maybe. But I do want to talk about one of the things that I think all of us.
Before you go into that, I think it's interesting, this idea of a theme kind of thing versus a list of resolutions, because I like that theme idea because it's something that's stickier in my mind, and it's something that you can hold on to for the whole year, because a list of resolutions are so kind of concrete and finite that I don't know. I would encourage people out there to do the same thing. Because I know for us, the past few years that we've done that, it's been constantly on our mind, right? Because it just kind of sticks in there. I've made a lot of lists of what I'm going to do, and then I never look at them again.
Yeah.
Basically, but that the theme idea is something that just can stay with you, I think, a little bit longer,
Yeah.
and can inform maybe what you want to do.
Well, because it can grow with you too. I think I do believe that goals should be measurable.
Right,
Because
right.
you're like, I'd just like to be better at this. But also, that's so concrete that if you fail at a measurable goal, you feel like you're a failure and like, oh no, what now? Or if like you get into this thing and realize you hate it.
Yep.
But I think it is true that when it's like an overall feeling or a theme or a phrase, it's more amorphous and it can grow with things. And it can, in fact, some of the words that I've chosen, I feel later on like I didn't realize that that was going to be this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so like that has, been really cool.
You mean it's what you thought it was going to kind of do for you, sort of
It
evolved a
grew
little
even
bit.
bigger than that,
Yeah.
and it got
Yeah,
a
that
lot of
theme
depth
or that
and
thought.
And so I do think when choosing it is something that I kind of want to take my time with,
Yep.
and even for me, I make it a matter of prayer, and so that maybe I can be informed, even from God or a higher source,
Yep.
outside of myself, like that we can be kind of a co-creation of the year. One of the things that has been on my mind, and I think is important, no matter who you are. I guess I'm going to talk about one of the things that I want to be a part of my new year. It's been a part on my mind for several years in a row now, but I feel more strongly about than ever. It has to do with home.
Okay.
And this doesn't have to be your theme, but I do think it's important enough to talk about. I think but I do think it's an important thing for all of us to be thinking about with how things are going out there. And it is just that it's time for you to really focus on, if you haven't already, or to continue to focus on your home,
Yeah.
because it is a controllable universe.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that's really what we're saying. And this is the point of this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's what we're saying in the intro. If you're not like, what does that even mean? It means that like sometimes you feel like you have no power, especially if you watch the news and you hear about like cases and the state of things and the like, oh, now this is happening and this group feels this way, and and all the things they're constantly telling you you have to feel, or the way you need to respond, or like that there's a powerlessness that you feel.
Okay.
And one thing, you're not powerless even in that world.
Okay.
Right? And that you do have the choice of how to respond to that. But I think another thing is it's so important to set up a place that you are in control of. That you can, because it is true to a certain extent that you can't control your neighbors, you can't control your community, you can't control your state or your country or the world.
Okay.
And so if you are constantly
Or
being,
that control only goes so far as far as voting or what. I mean, obviously there's things you can do, but
yeah, but like if you're constantly being yanked around by the state of the outside world,
yeah.
you're going to be miserable.
Right. Right.
And I mean, I've been in that before. And
I feel like you can go in and out of it even.
yeah,
you know?
you have to be very intentional.
Uh-huh.
And so whatever you can do to set up more independence from those systems, I think you will be happier. You will be healthier too. You will be safer.
Yep.
And I mean that in every sense of all of those words. And so, there was somebody shared this earlier in the year, and I reshared it on Facebook, and I wanted to read part of it and to talk about it. I don't want to get into all of the implications of what this means. So I think the person that wrote it is talking about, she wrote, this person, Jewel Victoria Elliott. I don't know Jewel. I don't know what she stands for. I don't know anything, but somebody else shared it, and I liked the overall feeling of it.
Okay, so essentially you're
Disclaimer.
saying
I really don't know
I'm
anything
not saying
about
I know
this
this
woman,
person or that I'm like
but
whatever
I wanted
standing
to
behind
share it and talk about it.
person.
And it was, she says, it's a them and me sort of conversation. Them, you won't be able to attend a concert or football game. Me, I don't mind. Them, you can't go to a large shopping mall. Me, I'll survive. Them, you can't drink at the pub. Me, I don't need to drink. Them, you can't enter nightclubs. Me, I don't go out at night. Them, we'll tell your employer. Me, I don't have one. Them, we'll take it from your salary. Me, I don't have a salary. Them, you can't go to your job. Me, I don't have or want your job. Them, you can't be in the city. Me, I prefer living out in nature. Them, you can't go to this restaurant. Me, I haven't in years anyways. And she kind of goes on with that.
The idea is,
and then it says, them, you can't be part of society. Me, I already checked out. Your kids can't come to school. I'll homeschool. You'll be on your own. And then she says, I'm surrounded by my family and tribe and all the people reaching the same conclusion all over the world. Them, you can't choose for yourself. I just did. What can we tempt you with? Me? Nothing. And I think I really, really don't want to go to the implications of what that means when it comes to vaccines or anything else, right?
Yeah.
My point is that when you are getting your joy and your fulfillment from your own creation,
Right.
and when you've created a place that is not dependent on somebody else coming in and adding to it or supporting it or anything,
going somewhere else for it, or
then you are safe.
right.
And I mean emotionally
And
mentally.
You don't have that dependence.
Yeah. And so that was a big lesson for us over the last couple of years, that we were so grateful for the places we had independence, because then we weren't yanked around emotionally. And that was a very legitimate emotional turmoil for a lot of people the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Where it's like suddenly their whole life has changed overnight because of the decisions of somebody else. I don't know specifically the circumstances of other people's lives, but I do know that we did not have as much stress in the last couple of years because we had become more independent. Mm-hmm. And so even in the way that, like, remember, like, people will talk about the shipping and how, like, goods,
The supply chain.
the supply chain, and how, like, you're not going to have what you need. Now that ended up being overblown, right? And we could argue about whatever on that, but the idea is, if you're like, well, I'm actually pretty independent and I don't need those things. I've set up ways to be independent, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Or I can live without that thing, whatever,
Or I have other ways of getting it.
Yeah.
So whether you're growing your own, or you found a different local source, or whatever, buying secondhand, that is a very physical, concrete, like, safety and peace. But I think there's also just a peace that comes from, I've set up a really happy home. Like, when I come into my space, it's happy here. I'm intentional about my home, about what I watch, what I read, what I listen to, what I talk about, how I talk in this space.
Okay.
This is my refuge, and nobody else is able to change that.
Yeah.
So I hope that me reading that, you're not still thinking about, like, well, what is Megan's stance on these things? It's like, let's not talk about stances right now. Let's not talk about any of that. I mean, isn't that what we're constantly being bombarded with?
Well, yeah,
is lines being drawn, and then I'm asking you which side you're on.
Yeah.
And it's like, you need to be really intentional about being independent enough to have a space where you make decisions for yourself, and you create a space where it is informed by the things you want there.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, and it's an independence, like you said, so that you're not especially emotionally, like, yanked around.
Yeah.
Because it is very possible to be sad or depressed or scared about a lot of things that are happening in the world, or angry. But if you create a space, because the reality is, like you said before, your control over all those things is very small.
Yeah.
And Stephen R. Covey talks about that. I can't remember the exact phrase, but basically your area of control. Like, what do I actually have? Yeah, your area of influence or something like that. And the truth is, what you have control over is pretty much within the walls of your own home, and with your family. And so why not focus on that and make it a great place, a place of refuge from all that, and use that as your strength, I guess. And don't let everything out there make you have a horrible year. I guess kind of what we're getting at. Like, it's a new year. Let's think about how can I insulate myself from some of this,
from being able
negativity.
Anybody else being able to take these things away from me.
Right. And because you have the power to do that. That's the beauty of home. That's the beauty of you as an individual and your family.
And that sort of preparation is not, you can be stressed about, like, oh, I don't even want to think about that. It's like, no, but in thinking about it, in thinking about worst case scenarios and preparing for them,
right,
then you don't have to be stressed anymore, because they can be like, well, you won't be able to do this. And you're like, that's okay. I've already figured out what I would do in that scenario. So let's say you're not homeschooling,
right,
but you do know if it got to a certain point with schools and where it was difficult and not serving your child or your family anymore, you've got a plan. Like,
right,
actually, well, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go check in and do this online thing, or I'm going to, like, join this co-op, or I'm going to go to this, local private school, whatever it is, you got to plan. And so
Sure.
that when it happens, you're like, oh, well, actually, I already knew exactly what was going to happen if we got to this point.
Yeah.
And that goes for every part. So not only do Mike and I homeschool and we work from home, but like even with church was canceled. Church is a really important part of our life. And we believe in organized religion. And we can talk about that on a different podcast because I totally believe in organized religion. And I totally believe in that sort of order and meeting together with people that maybe challenge your ideas or just bug you, and how that requires a lot of growth, right? That's a good thing. Meeting
Yep.
together with a congregation.
She's talking about me, by the way.
No, it's a really good thing. But also when we didn't go to church formally for like meet with a congregation for 6 months,
Something like that, yeah.
we started having church at home.
Uh-huh.
And it was a joyful experience for us. And partially that's because we feel like our church did a really good job with like having beforehand already these kind of systems of curriculum and things in place, and we knew
Where you could study at home and
Yeah.
do the things you need to.
Yeah, but like we loved it. It was a special experience, and so that didn't stress us out either. And I felt bad for people who desperately and rightly so wanted to meet with their church congregation, but it's like, but there's also a different way to do it
Right.
where you still get to be spiritually fed
Uh-huh.
independently. Now, I believe in that relationship and I believe in all of those things. So I'm not saying that like you
You
don't
wouldn't
need
you
church
wouldn't
or
want that
religion.
long term, but
But I do think it's great to look at your life and say, this is a pain point for me. I'm feeling really stressed about this. Like every time I hear about this thing, it's really stressing me out. And I feel like, it's like, is there any way for me to become a little bit more independent here? So if that did happen, I'm good. I have
Right.
it figured out. Whether it be I have a little bit of food storage, or I have some money in savings, I have some skills, a different thing I could do for work. If my job got to this sort of point. And those are all really important. And I totally think we should focus on those. But also, like, you know what? In our home, this is how we treat each other. And we do things intentionally so that we all feel really happy here. And I decorate my home in a way that really echoes and reflects back to me what's important to me, not necessarily that I'm in style or I'm cool or whatever,
yeah.
I have created a space and a haven for myself and for my children if I have them, and for anybody that comes into my home that is just safe, but also uplifting. What's that word? Restorative. And I think it's actually a really joyful thing to do. And it really, I guess what I realized the last couple of years is, and that's why we started the podcast, but like your whole world is right here.
Yep.
And there's like that great meme that went around like 6 months ago of Julie Andrews like on the guitar
Oh,
with like the kids, and behind her like there's like a burning city.
yep.
And like doesn't matter if you have
Well,
kids
it was like mom's homeschooling like the
moms.
world.
Yeah,
meanwhile,
in
or
the
something
world.
like that.
It doesn't matter what's going on out there. You really can set up your home as a space where it's a different world.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think you actually might have to.
Yeah.
I don't
possible.
think that you can go back to thinking that everything out there is going to reflect peace and value, the same values as you back at you.
Well, because we kind of went through this, we all thought like, okay, 2020 was crazy. Let's see if 2021 is any different or better, and it wasn't. And so it's like we can't sit around and wait for the outside world to kind of slow down and reflect back to us what we're
we
hoping
want, yeah.
it will. So we just have to say, okay, I'm going to make my place or my space what I want.
Yeah,
to
like
have.
I just say like, okay, cool. Well, I'm done with that whole thing.
Right. And you disconnect in some ways. And we found, I think we've talked about this, different ways to kind of, okay, that sort of media we're not going to do anymore, or that sort of thing, like as ways to take your kind of independence and say, you know what, I don't need that.
Yeah, and it seems like before you do it, like, oh, that's going to be so hard, and like it's going to require a lot of self-control or something like that. But we found that as we have been more selective with those things, that now it's like when we do watch them again, or when we do like let them into our home again, we're like, oh, why would I want these? These make me feel terrible.
Yeah.
Like our home is so happy, and then we're watching this movie that's just stressful and angry or violent or whatever, and you're just like, man, I'm not into it anymore. Like we've changed. And this is not the thing I want to do anymore.
Yeah.
And so really, like, yes, you should be concerned about the community at large, and you should be trying to help the world be a better place. But in the meantime, you should have your own little world at home where it's exactly the better place.
Yeah. Because you don't have to vote anybody into office for that to change. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Or there's some quote, like, doesn't matter who's in the White House.
Yeah, it was Barbara Bush said it. Doesn't matter who's in the White House. It matters what happens in your house.
Yeah.
And that really is true at the end of the day. And then you don't have to get yanked around. Then you don't have to be so afraid, like, oh my gosh, what happens at the next election? It's like, well, yeah, we should all be concerned about our countries and where they're headed. But like, but you get to control what's happening in your world. And there's a quote by C.S. Lewis that I love, and I don't have it on me, but he just essentially says, like, at the end of it all, those who were in hell will say we were always in hell. And those who are in heaven will say we were always in heaven, and both will be speaking the truth.
Right. So this is like after you die sort of thing.
Yeah. And whether
So-
you believe in that worldview or eternal view, it doesn't really matter. The point is, it is what you make of it. And you can be going through the same experience as somebody else and be seeing totally different things
Yep.
and having a totally different experience, even if you're in the exact same place.
Right.
And so you get to choose. So that was one of the great things that I learned in 2020, and probably a lot of us did. We were all staying at home and not interacting with our communities, and you're listening to the news and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's such a mess out there. And then I started doing my walks. We moved.
Yep.
And because when I was doing my walks, I was usually alone and on this trail alone. And then we moved and I was walking in the community. So suddenly I'm seeing people on my walk, and I was like caught off guard because everybody was nice and smiling and normal. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, crazy of me. Because it feels really normal out here. Even though the news is saying it's really bad and not normal,
Yeah.
it's still really normal. Like, and people are nice. And I think most people are good.
Uh-huh.
And so that was a big lesson for me.
So with that, it's not like we're advocating for just shut the door, stay in your house, and don't ever interact with anyone. But
Yeah.
in fact, part of this probably solution is to get out a little bit and interact with people in your community. so
Yeah,
you
and
see-
well, and for me, it was like, well, if that's true, and their response to me had such a big difference in my experience, then I better well be smiling at people
Oh, yeah.
when I'm out there.
Uh-huh.
And I think more and more, I do think I've noticed that people are intentionally being kind out there to like reflect back at like, hey, I still believe
Yeah.
that you're okay and that I'm
Yep.
okay, and particularly in our community, we have a lot of different people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and different races. And I'm walking through past lots of different people, and I feel like for the most part, people are saying hi, and they're smiling, and we're making eye contact, and we're letting each other know like, hey, we're okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We're okay. And that's a big deal. And so I do think that you should have a physical location, a separate from the world, that you reign over, and it is a
Okay.
goodly land
Yeah.
sort of thing, like a heaven on earth, a Zion sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think also, yes, you can take that with you and imagine it like a little force field that goes with you everywhere you go. And when you interact with someone, because not everybody I interact with is nice.
Okay.
But I
But
let
most.
most. And I let the ones that, when they're not nice, I just kind of go like, well, I hope things get better for you. I think a
Right.
thought like that in my mind. Because at first I'm like, wow, geez. Like,
Yeah.
you can't even say hello. Like, and you won't even look at me. And I get kind of hurt. And it's like, you know what? I don't know what's going on over there. But I'm going to choose to create a world where we're kind and happy and all of those things. So
Right.
I don't know if I'm going way all over the place.
It's okay. That's what we do on this podcast, Megan.
Yeah, I guess so. I just, I don't know what your themes are for the year, but I do think all of us have to be very, very intentional from here on out at creating our own world in our homes and in our, in the little force field that goes with us. Like, you have to be intentional. It maybe used to be that like everybody was on the same page as you and believed that like in hope and
Right.
good things and in that everybody should be nice to each other or whatever. But like, I don't know. I don't know.
I think most people still do.
I know, but it doesn't. You just have to say, you know what? I'm gonna do my own thing, and kind of step outside of a lot of the, because it feels like I know everybody's saying it like, oh my gosh, this has been a crazy year, bad year, or like I know everybody's feeling that, so I can't be the only one.
Sure.
And so I think we have to be really intentional to say like, actually, I think you can make it a good year still.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let you make me feel afraid. I'm not going to let you make me feel ashamed. I'm not going to let you make me feel distraught or terrified or all of those things that it seems like people are wanting us to feel.
Well, I think when you say people, there's organizations and you could
outlets.
Because I don't think that individual people are that way, but I think there are organizations who benefit from that sort of thing. Those are the ones that we can say no, thank you
like,
to.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think for the most part, individual people are wanting the same thing and they want some peace and some happiness in their life. So, yeah.
But not everybody, because some people are being yanked around.
Yeah, there are people who are being influenced by it. And I guess let's just make sure it's not us.
Yeah, and that the power of a kind smile
right
when you're out there is more than ever. I really think it's more than ever. Because there's so many people telling us right now that we are at war with each other.
Sure, yeah.
That we really are. That out there are people that you shouldn't trust, people who are bad, people who are crazy, people who are trying to keep us from being safe and free and everything you can imagine.
All sorts of stuff.
And it's coming from every which way, pointing to the other, always to the other.
Yeah.
But the power of going out and, first of all, in your home, just not being worked up about it and creating a space of happiness and joy and hope and learning and progress and all of those things. And then when you're going out into your community, intentionally not participating in that.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for the people who smile and talk to me, and what a burden that lifts when they do that.
Totally. Yeah. And we can all do it.
Yeah. And I really think in the coming years, I don't know that it's going to get any better, because I really think it's working for the news and for people along those lines. They get a lot of traction out of it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to get any better. And unfortunately, I don't think everybody's going to step outside of that. But I also think there will be large groups of people who do, and who are intentionally kind, intentionally open, and intentionally unified with their neighbors and in their communities. I really believe that will emerge, and we will. I believe in people, and I believe I've already seen it happen, and we can all continue to make that happen, where we just realize, you know what? I think I'm out. Yeah. I think I'm going to decide there's something different going on than you're telling me.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about I'm not talking about anything specific about like, does COVID this or that? I'm not. I think that's the point. Like, we don't have to judge everybody on these lines that are constantly being drawn.
Yeah.
And our home doesn't have to have all of these lines crossing through it.
Yep.
Like, it can just be a place where we're independent of all that, where we're planting gardens and we're reading books and we're listening to music and having dance parties in the kitchen, and we're baking and we're loving and we're laughing, no matter what is happening out there. And so what actually specifics of that means for you, I don't know. For us, absolutely, it's homeschooling. And it's working for ourselves, and it's doing those things. But you will know, and you will have, and just set up these plans and your responses and create a space that is continually more independent, so that it can be continually happier than it's ever been.
Yeah. And can resist the influences that are trying to exert themselves onto it. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, Happy New Year.
Is that it? Yeah, Happy New Year.
I mean, I love talking about goals and new beginnings, so we may talk about it again next time. But
no, I think it's great. And I think it's a positive way to look at this new beginning, because like we talked about, it's good to have a reason to kind of reset and to want to make a few adjustments in our life, and this is a perfect time to do it. So
yeah, and there is a time to mourn. There's a time to say it's rough out there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're supposed to ignore the conditions, But there's also a time to be happy and to say like, yeah, that was sad and that was hard, but I'm going to go back to being happy now.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go back to being hopeful again.
Yeah, because I listened to a book. It was Wayne Dyer, and he talked about how you can't be sad enough to like fix all the problems.
Yeah.
You being at home, being sad about something doesn't actually
Change
solve anything.
Yeah.
And so we can recognize that there are issues, but being sad and depressed about it actually doesn't do any good. Unless it's gonna make you get up and go out and do something. That would be good. But anyways, I think it doesn't serve anyone to just feel bad.
Yeah, there's
and sad.
that movie, that Tom Hanks movie where he's defending the communist spy from Russia.
Oh,
Remember?
yeah, I can't remember
Like
the name of it.
something of spies or something. I don't know.
Game of Spies or
I don't know. But the guy in it, he keeps asking him, "Are you nervous?" Like before they go into the trial. And he's like, "Would it help?" Like, and it's like, it's a really good point. I'm not advocating being a spy for a foreign country, but I think you have to remember, like, when people are like, oh my gosh, can you imagine? And I'm talking to myself here, too, guys, by the way. Mike's like, really? No, but like, can you believe that? Like, oh, this is where we're at now. And it's like, oh, aren't you sad about that? It's like, would it help?
right.
And people are telling you, you need to be outraged. And it's like, do
Right.
I? Or can I be kind? Can we kindness our way out of this? Can we hope our way out of this? Can we heal our way out of this?
Yeah,
And I think I here at this podcast, we're going to say you can.
right.
And it starts with setting up a place. And I think of it too as like, I have this, like, your home will become this little like glow of goodness.
Uh-huh.
And then maybe your neighbor's home. And so then it's the bubble expands
kinda
of
spread a
goodness.
little bit.
And then until whole towns are full of it and this goodness. And that's cool.
Yep.
So start there. Start with setting up your space. And I promise other people are doing the same.
Uh-huh.
Other people are going, you know what? I think I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be kind and I'm going to be hopeful. And I think we'll see that more and more in the coming days, that people are intentionally good and intentionally kind.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year, everybody.
2022 is going to be our best year yet.
It'll be awesome.
It really will. No matter what it is for the world at large, it can be your best year
We can
yet.
all make it the best year here.
Thanks for coming along, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for your reviews. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your friendship. And, I know there's a million things you could be doing out there. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah. And we will catch you next time, right?
On the flip side,
Okay.
bye.
See ya.